The rain didn't just fall in Ridgefield, Kentucky. It clawed at the earth, tearing through the silence of a town already half forgotten. Clara James stood behind the counter of Billy's diner, her apron damp from wiping spills, her hands steady despite the ache in her bones. At 32, she was used to being invisible, a shadow slipping between coffee refills and small talk. But tonight, something was about to break. Would she stand tall when the world pushed her down? Or would she crumble like the peeling paint on Main Street? The answer would change everything, not just for her, but for a stranger who'd walked through the storm. Clara's life was a quiet one, stitched together with small acts of survival. Ridgefield wasn't much to look at anymore. The factory had closed years ago, leaving behind rusting smokestacks and a main street where half the shops were shuttered. The diner, with its flickering neon sign and cracked vinyl booths, was one of the few places still breathing. Clara opened it at 5 a.m., her sneakers crunching on gravel as she walked from her rented room above an auto garage. She closed it most nights long after the last customer had left, the jukebox humming softly in the dark. No one asked why she worked double shifts. No one asked much about her at all. She didn't mind, not really. Clara had grown up in the spaces between other people's stories, raised by her grandfather, Henry James, a Korean War veteran with a voice like gravel and a heart soft as cornbread. He'd taken her in when her parents disappeared into their own chaos, teaching her to stand tall even when the world felt heavy. "Honor's quiet, Clara," he'd say, puffing on his pipe. "It's sweeping the porch before guests come, even if they never show." When he passed 3 years ago, Clara buried her grief deep, carrying his dog tags and his lessons like armor. She kept her ponytail tight, her smile gentle and her dreams small. Pay the rent, feed her one-eyed cat, Smokey, and maybe save enough to fix the sparking outlet in her room. But small dreams didn't stretch far. Last month, her roommate skipped town, leaving Clara with a stack of unpaid bills and a landlord who didn't care about excuses. She'd moved into the garage room, a cramped space with a screaming faucet and a ceiling that leaked when it rained. Her savings, $64.38, were dwindling, and the diner's tips weren't enough to bridge the gap. Still, she showed up, pouring coffee for truckers, smiling at regulars who left quarters and sneaking spoonfuls of tuna for Smokey. She noticed things others missed: the loneliness in a customer's eyes, the bruises on the new dishwasher's arm, the way some folks came in just for water, too proud to ask for more. Clara's life was a patchwork of kindnesses, offered without expectation, carried without complaint. That rainy Tuesday evening, the diner was quiet, the air thick with the smell of grease and damp coats. The jukebox played a faint Johnny Cash tune, and the windows rattled under the storm's assault. Clara was scrubbing a ketchup stain when the door creaked open, letting in a gust of cold and a man who looked like he'd been carved from the rain itself. His military coat, tattered and soaked, hung heavy on his thin frame. A faded U.S. Army patch clung to the sleeve. His beard was patchy, his left leg bandaged and dragging. His hands, scarred and trembling, clutched a paper bag like it was all he owned. He stood in the doorway, scanning the room not for a seat, but for permission to exist. Most customers looked away, their forks clinking against plates, their phones suddenly fascinating. The waitress before Clara used to say, "People like him just want attention." Clara never believed that. She saw the way he shuffled to a corner booth, standing beside it as if sitting might be too bold. She walked over, towel in hand, her voice soft. "Evening? Can I get you something warm?" The man didn't meet her eyes at first, his gaze fixed on the floor. When he finally looked up, Clara saw pain and pride wrestling in his weathered face. "Just hot water, ma'am," he said, his voice cracking, "and maybe a crust of bread if it's headed for the trash." The words hit her like a memory. Her grandfather had told her a story once about a stranger who fed him on a rainy night in Busan, 1952. She nodded. "I'll see what I can do." Inside the kitchen, a returned order of chicken and dumplings sat under the heat lamp untouched. Clara plated it with extra bread, poured a cup of black coffee, and carried it to the booth. "This was sent back," she said, setting it down. "Still hot." He looked startled, his hands hovering over the tray. "I can't pay." She smiled. "It's already paid for. Coffee's on me." He stared at the food, his fingers curling around the mug. "You remind me of my wife," he murmured. "She'd do things like this. Said everyone deserved warmth, especially those who've seen too much cold." Clara blinked back tears, her chest tight. From across the room, the diner's owner, Wayne Becker, spotted them. His eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening. But Clara wasn't thinking about rules. She was thinking about the man in front of her, someone who'd fought for a country that now passed him by. He ate slowly, each bite deliberate, his posture straight despite the pain in his leg. When he finished, his eyes were watery. "You saved a soul tonight, miss," might have been broken but not forgotten. He reached into his coat, pulling out a rusted dog tag, its chain frayed. Pressing it into her palm, he said, "Name's Eli Turner. If I don't make it through this winter, I want someone to know I existed." Before she could speak, he stood and limped back into the storm, the door swinging shut behind him. Clara stood frozen, the tag warm in her hand. She didn't hear Wayne's footsteps until his voice shattered the moment. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" He loomed in the kitchen doorway, his face red, his eyes locked on the empty plate. "He was a veteran, sir," Clara said quietly. "He asked for water and bread. I gave him food we'd throw out." Wayne's voice rose, sharp enough to turn heads. "This ain't a charity, Clara. If people see us feeding street trash, they'll think we're a soup kitchen." A couple in the corner stirred their coffee, avoiding her gaze. No one spoke. Clara inhaled. "I paid for the coffee. Take it out of my tips." Wayne slammed his palm on the counter, the sound like a gunshot. "You made me look soft. You're fired. Pack your things and get out." His finger jabbed toward the door. The diner felt colder, not from the rain but from the silence of everyone else. No one stood up. No one said she was right. A woman whispered to her husband, "That's what happens when you bring trouble inside." Clara untied her apron, her hands trembling, and walked into the rain, her shoes soaked through, her hair plastered to her face. She stood under the awning, heart pounding. A rustling came from the alley. Eli Turner hobbled toward her, his breath shallow. "I saw what happened," he said. "I shouldn't have let you pay a price for me." Clara shook her head. "You didn't do anything wrong." He pressed the dog tag into her hand again. "You saved a shattered soul, child. You reminded me I wasn't invisible." Then he was gone, swallowed by the storm. That night, Clara sat in her room, Smokey curled against her hip. Her wet clothes hung over a chair, the street lamp casting shadows through the blinds. Her bank account read $42.12. Rent was due in 10 days. No job, no insurance, no plan. But she held the dog tag, tracing the name, Turner, Eli J. She didn't know a teenager had filmed the confrontation until the video went viral. By noon it was everywhere, but not in her favor. Comments tore her apart. She broke the rules. Probably stole food before. Her co-workers unfriended her. One messaged, "Always playing hero. How's that working out?" Clara applied to 3 diners. None called back. One manager said, "We can't risk the attention, honey." Another slid her application back without a word. By sundown, she wandered downtown, the dog tag heavy in her pocket. At a bus shelter, she found Eli, curled under a plastic sheet. She knelt, leaving half a sandwich wrapped in newspaper. "Thank you for remembering me," she whispered, then walked away, unaware a black military vehicle had pulled up, its occupant watching her go. The rain stopped before dawn, leaving Ridgefield scrubbed clean. At 6:45 a.m., black SUVs rolled into Main Street, stopping at the diner. A man in a pressed army uniform stepped out, medals gleaming. Behind him, soldiers, Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, formed rows, silent and unmoving. Cars slowed, shopkeepers stared. Wayne Becker, restocking napkins, froze when the bell jingled. The officer stood tall. "I'd like to speak to the owner." Wayne stepped forward, pale. "I'm the owner." The officer removed his cap. "Colonel Matthew Turner, son of Eli Turner. The man you humiliated yesterday is the reason I'm alive. In 2007, our convoy was ambushed in Iraq. He carried me 3 miles under fire, shrapnel in his leg, refusing treatment until we were safe." He held up a laminated citation. The Silver Star. His. Wayne's eyes darted, finding no allies. "He pawned it," Turner said, "to feed a homeless family. The waitress you fired reminded me of the country he fought for." A corporal entered, holding a black case with the Silver Star. Turner turned to the door. "Bring her here." A reporter found Clara at her room, breathless. "They're asking for you, soldiers." The whole block shut down. Clara approached the diner, heart racing. The soldiers parted, then saluted, 200 hands raised to foreheads. She froze, her throat tight. Turner stepped forward, placing the medal in her hand. "My father wanted you to have this." Clara shook her head. "It's not mine." He closed her fingers around it. "It is now." The diner closed days later. Suppliers cut ties, staff quit, veterans picketed. Wayne vanished. Clara didn't gloat. A veteran nonprofit offered her a job managing a community kitchen in an old warehouse. She accepted, not for fame, but because it felt right. The kitchen became a haven. Soldiers peeled potatoes, nurses served soup. Smokey watched from a windowsill. One afternoon, a boy of 8 walked in, holding $1 and a cookie. "I saw you in the video," he said. "My grandpa was a soldier. I want to help someone." Clara knelt, hand over heart, and nodded. His kindness echoed hers, a ripple moving forward. Eli Turner got housing and care at a VA unit. His son visited, Soldiers listened to his stories. Clara carried his dog tag, keeping the silver star in a box beside her bed. Some nights she'd whisper her grandfather's words, "Honor's quiet." The story faded from headlines, but those who saw it remembered. Clara didn't march or protest. She just offered a meal and dignity to a man the world forgot. And that was enough to shake a town. This is a story about us, how we treat people when no one's watching, the cost of kindness without applause. Have you seen a moment like Clara's? Stood up when it was hard? Share your story below, it might inspire someone. If this touched you, like, subscribe, and share with someone who believes in quiet courage. Thank you for listening.